veterans and their families know about the benefits and programs available to them is essential to my job as Minister of Veterans Affairs. And that's why it's so important to explain what is involved. It's why I've hosted over 40 veteran town halls across the country. It's why we're working so hard to explain Pension for Life as clearly as we can.
Welcome back. Well, that was Veterans Affairs Minister Seamus O'Regan talking about what his government has done to restore benefits to veterans. The Liberals promised in their election campaign to increase benefits, restore the pension for life, and treat veterans with respect. Have they? Joining me now are two veterans. In Edmonton, retired Master Corporal Paul Franklin, who lost his legs in Afghanistan, and here with me in studio, retired Captain Sean Bruyea, who is also a severely injured veteran. Sean, I'm going to start with you. They made a lot of promises. They weren't going to underspend. They would bring back the pension for life, faster access and better access to benefits for veterans, that they would treat them with great respect. One veteran, one standard. Have they kept their promises?
Only one. One was, and I'll give them credit, that they increased the income loss payments for veterans to 90%. But after that, it was all downhill for veterans. So, for instance, the universal education, any veteran that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised that wanted a post-secondary education would get it. That hasn't happened. 1% of veterans will qualify for this going forward, and it excludes the most disabled and the most destitute veterans. I mean, this is not a Canadian program. This is a highly exclusive and unique program that doesn't meet the promise.
Well, Paul, do you feel that Justin Trudeau and his government have kept their promises to veterans?
Again, just tiny issues that they've done well on. But one of their big promises was a $60 million veterans facility for rehabilitation and recovery, and including with peer support and stuff. And of course, none of that has ever occurred. And we have a facility like that in Edmonton, the Glenrose, where I went, and it could easily be adopted as the veterans facility to take care of all wounded and severely injured vets.
Now,
and,
Sean,
one of
the big promises, Sean, was that they were going to bring back the pension for life. And the government says, and I've had the minister on the show, we absolutely have done that. You say they have not done that. Have they? Explain to me what the difference is between what the Liberals have brought in and what you think they promised.
That's right. Unequivocally, they did not return or reinstate, was the promise, reinstate lifelong pensions. There was only one pension for lifelong benefits for veterans that were severely disabled, or for any injury for that matter. And that pension was not reinstated. That pension that continues to be paid out to about 60,000 veterans right now that have lifelong disabilities pays approximately 3 times the amount of this monthly amount that the Trudeaus are now implementing. The interesting thing is that unfortunately after that veteran dies, is that there'll be nothing left over for the surviving family members. This is merely the lump sum which has been the lightning rod for veteran disaffection for the past decade. This is merely the lump sum that's been made into annuity over time.
So, Sean, how much less money is the pension that the Liberals are giving veterans compared to the original pension that existed before and that veterans wanted back?
Well, that's right. So let's set aside the fact that people under the old disability pension that people are still collecting today get additional amounts for their spouse and their children, which is only right because the family suffers along with the veteran. Just the basic watered-down disability pension pays up to 3 times the amount that this Liberal pension is paying.
So this one would be 3 times less.
That's correct.
Wow. Paul, okay, for people at home who think, what's the big deal with the pension for life? Why are veterans so worked up about this? Why do veterans want that pension for life?
We've served, we've gone across the world to do our tours of duty and, of course, protection at home. And the biggest thing is we want the government to step up and take care of us when we're in need. And I think it's only fair. It's a promise that we signed on to when we signed into the military. The problem with the lump sum is that you're giving a huge amount of money to a person who may or may not have some sort of drug or alcohol issues, or there be family disagreements, or there's a whole bunch of other problems within the lump sum. So there, you get that taken away. A friend of mine in 2008, he got a lump sum. He was advised to invest it. And of course, the crash happened in 2008, 2009, and he lost all his money. So now he's got 0. So that's the great indicator of why this kind of stuff shouldn't happen. We need to have this pension for life and have this pension kept for each of us for each year until our end of our lives. And as Sean said, also a bit for our families so that they can be taken care of. We still to this day have widows that have to report that their husbands are still dead 2-3 years after the deaths, and almost on a 3-year basis. Just like I have to report that my limb loss is every 3 years. And it's part of the huge bureaucracy that is Veterans Affairs, that they do not understand that this stuff is very offensive.
Well, and speaking of that bureaucracy, Sean, one of the big promises was to create faster access to programs because the wait time is a huge issue in the financial strain. How are they doing on that file?
Abysmal. I mean, they have promised that they've been hiring frontline workers. We haven't seen any substantial results of that hiring. There has been no decrease in wait times. In fact, there's been an increase in wait times. And instead, the government deciding how we're going to deal with these wait times, well, let's set the standard and set the bar lower by making veterans wait longer and say, look, we're meeting a longer service standard. I mean, veterans are becoming incredibly disillusioned and disaffected and being harmed by the wait for these programs. I would say that this is a direct contribution to much of the despondency that contributes to people, taking such desperate measures such as substance abuse and perhaps even suicide.
Paul, what about how the government treats veterans? They promised respect for veterans. They promised veterans wouldn't have to fight them in court. We all remember the images of Julian Fantino being chased through the halls of Parliament by veterans and by veteran spouses. How's this minister doing?
I've always said the Veterans Affairs file is probably one of the worst ones within government because even if you do your job, it's on the backs of wounded and injured and ill veterans and their families and widows. I mean, just to be doing well is a difficult job. But the problem, though, is, of course, that they aren't doing a great job. And so when they talked about pensions for life, one of the things they did was they simply just changed the name of existing pensions, raised it a small amount, and then said, hey, ta-da, we've got pensions for life. And of course, that was the main argument that we wanted, is pensions for life. And so they just changed the name, and now they say, look, we've done it. And that's the sort of the shell game that's happening. And that's the biggest problem, is that we're watching this and people are dying. So right now, I think it's 71 veterans have committed suicide from the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. So here we are sitting here waiting to get till that number reaches the 159 of the soldiers that have died in Afghanistan, and it's going to happen within this next, probably 5 to 10 years. And we need to get Veterans Affairs to understand that this is preventable, and it's up to them to do their job.
Okay, that's all the time that we have for today, but I'd like to thank you both so much for your time and as well for your service. Thank you for joining us.